Good morning to you, wherever you may be in the world today. Alan Clements here from Los Angeles, California, United States of America. Today, April 4th, 2021. Today's talk, I think it's the fifth talk in the series based on my new book that's now released as of yesterday called Extinction, X-rated. It's an auto-fictional, dark satire on good and evil, Satan and the devil, and the light and ascension. Today I'd like to speak about its birth, if you will. I want to take my time. It's Easter Sunday. The title of the talk just came to me before I sat down, in large part based upon what I'm witnessing, what we're all seeing in the country of Myanmar, the pornography of power, the pornography of privilege, the pornography of profit, the pornography of international impotence, the pornography of the degradation of consciousness, this satanic burlesque, if you will. I can't even believe that I describe what I see and feel in my beloved country of Myanmar in such graphic terms. But here on this Holy Sunday of Ascension and Resurrection, I want to juxtapose and talk extemporaneously from my own soul, my own heart. I place myself in your spirit. I place my hand in my heart in the embrace of this wicked cosmos that bleeds and oozes and commits rape and genocide. And yes, there is seemingly a radiance, a wisdom. I place my faith today in what I call, in my Dhamma, in what I've learned from my teachers, Seda Upandita, Mahasi Seda, Seda Usujata, others. I place my saddha, my confidence, in my parami, the accumulated forces of transformational wisdom inherent in this mind-body process from time immemorial. These forces of excellence, my holiness, my reverence, my love for transformational wisdom, for freedom. I place my faith today in my parami. I place my faith in my cetana, the power of my intention, my determination to do what is good, what is true, what is right. I have that volition in my heart. I've made a life journey, as you have, many of you, in developing a conviction in our cetana, our regard, our courage to take the good fight to the devil, take the good fight to Satan, take the good fight to Mara, and do all that we can in our holiness, in our own drive for ascension to push back the forces of evil. This pornography, I don't know about you, ever since I was a young boy, and even more so today at this stage of my life, I cry, not freely, but I cry jagged tears at the sensitivity that I feel and what I feel for other people in their circumstances. This journey of awakening, this journey of the ascension that we're all part of, this journey of Dhamma transformational engagement with the phenomenology of evil and turning that into the radiance of vimutti, or freedom. To me, there's no sound reference point or paradigm or picture of it that I can hold. It's valid. It's so fraught with the unexpected. so fraught with feelings and psychologies and emotions that transcend even my wildest dreams and my deepest nightmares. The more that I feel into the fabric of this shared space. I know I'm saying things that are obvious to you, but let's commune today in this very radically holy moment of existence, juxtaposed with Satan and the devil and the cult of horror that we see around the world today, not just in Myanmar, but yes, in Myanmar. The pornography of power, of privilege, of money, 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 money. My book that I wrote, I'm very vulnerable about it because it's so other than what I've ever done. It's based upon what I learned from my teacher, the Mahasi Sayadaw, in a discourse that he gave way back that very few people ever paid attention to, called the Tuvataka Sutta, attributed to the teachings of Buddha. It's a fascinating short discourse that almost no one knows about, and I didn't know about it until more recently, and it really inspired me. And I'm going to get into it, but I want to take my time today. If you would just sit in with this space with me and radiate from your heart on this day of resurrection and redemption and ascension. Let's just bleed out the light of love and holiness and reverence. Let's just take the walls down from our Notre Dame and worship the great divine feminine spirit that is pervading all things in this universe, but so easily denied, and it moves into the pornography of delusion and violence and violence. Why are there so much fucking violence? That to me is why I wrote this book, Extinction, X-Rated. I wanted to get as close to the core of the devil as possible, and I wanted to fight with it, him, her, and I didn't want to do battle with Mara. And these boys and girls all over the world today, all of us faced with this inevitable ecosystem of heaven and hell and right and wrong and war and peace and blah, blah. All these books written about this stuff, but it doesn't do anything to touch the blood on the heart of the moment. Where do we go from here? Where do we find our grace? Where do we find our true hope? Yes, we live in comfort, some of us. It's so temporal, so anicca, so impermanent to say the obvious. It's just in one split second, not just a bullet hole through the child of one's own soul, but the next thing there's an earthquake called an extinction. The earth is gone, it's crumbling, a great collapse, the great industrialized, digitalized facet of modern day existence is the very fetish that we're all addicted to, that's collapsing the environment and killing the animals and destroying the oceans and creating a holocaust in the sky of freedom. And here we sit and talk and emote in this weird phantasm that makes LSD look like a kindergarten party, because this stuff bleeds and oozes. And the next thing you know, we're the victims of pornography. We are the demon. We're the devil. And there's such a radical thin line between what we point fingers at and what we deny in ourselves. They know not what they do. Who has the ability to say that with conviction? Holy day, I place my faith in your hands, Father. Whatever that means to you, I place my hands and my heart in my own parami, my own chaitana, my own aditant, my determination, my own sila, my ethical courage to rise up and to do the right thing, right? To do the right thing, to say the right thing, to restrain from the wrong thing, to restrain from doing the wrong thing. That dynamic. Why don't they teach that in kindergarten? Why don't they teach that in the holiness of the womb? Where do we learn these very aberrant traits to violate, denigrate, profit on the blood and the back of others? I dare you, right? I dare you. How shameful, right? Look what's going down in Myanmar today. Shooting into apartments when they turn the light on. Martial law. Absolutely disgraceful behaviors in the face of Buddha, Dhamma, light, God, Jesus, Allah. Call the holiness by the name that's true for you today. We're all rising up in a redemption. I take faith in my Dhamma. Yes, it's a Buddhist Pali word. It's meaningless to Buddhism. It is the vocation. You know this. I'm not claiming any great spiritual strength, but I do feel deep regard for my conviction in Dhamma. Restrain, Alan, I heard from Mahasi Sayadaw. Restrain, Alan, I heard from Sayadaw U Pandita. Restrain, I heard from Sayadaw U Sujata. Restrain, I heard from Sayadaw U Janaka. Restrain your impulses to denigrate. You will find greater peace in doing that. Develop your kusala. Develop your wholesomeness. Develop your radiance. Develop your capacity to ascend from the swamp of hell. Kilesa, fear, greed. Who among us have not been addicted in the torment of addictions? The torment of loneliness, the torment of rejection, the torment of being torn from the fabric of who you want to be with and love. We have to deal with these convulsions in this fabric of eternity and the ecosystem of mind and body that goes into infinity. What's so fucking romantic about infinity when the waves of this infinite ocean are fraught with razor blades and sharks and tigers and genocides and rapes and marauding men and women who delight in the bloodthirst of killing and the pornography of profit and privilege? This is not poetry. We are living and bleeding in this ocean of samsara, boiling. Some people are boiling in the hell world that's been created for them, around them, that they want no desire to participate in. A demonic satanic cult in Myanmar, oppressing 54 million, no, assassinating, torturing, lost it. Trace it right back to the convulsions of Mara, right? It's exhausting. Years ago, when I was at the Mahasi Thatanayekta, Rangoon, the meditation center where I lived for a short period of time, blessed to be a meditator under these savants of mind and body, of consciousness, of mindfulness. I remember one day that I was told, coming back to the motivation, the catalyst for the book that I just wrote, Extinction X-Rated, the Tuvataka Sutta. I had heard the story that someone had come to see my teacher, the Venerable Mahasi Sayadaw, whom every morning, it was said, met with the senior monks and nuns of the Yekta, the monastery, the meditation center, in his little anteroom above his meditation floor in the center of the Mahasi Thatanayekta. And they would talk over Dhamma, something very beautiful about the ritual of communion in the qualities of consciousness and heart and psychology. How I crave for that, how I often feel this longing at this stage of my life for intimate Sangha. Yes, there's Buddha, Dhamma, but Sangha, where are you, right? Where are you, samsaric Sangha, sisters and brothers and aunts and uncles and cousins? I mean, I just crave that level of eroticized cognitive Ubuntu to commune in these shared spaces, psychedelicized, DMT-oriented, the ascension of consciousness together. What a gift. And they did it every morning. It's said that one morning, an elderly female Burmese student came upstairs and sat behind the nuns and monks, and there she sat in reverence. And the Mahasi Sayadaw knew her, and it was said to me, he asked her, "Yes, what brings you, sister?" And suddenly, this woman began to speak in fluent Pali language. Now, Pali language is the language attributed to the Tipitaka, or the teachings of Dhamma, or the Buddha. Very similar to Sanskrit. And this female Burmese yogi, meditator, began to speak in fluent Pali to the Reverend Mahasi Sayadaw. And he knew, and I heard through my friend who told me the story, that this woman had never studied the Pali language. Pretty amazing, right? I know many of you who've studied the paranormal and psychic phenomena. I know even when I was a child, I grew up after my family moved from Boston, we moved to Virginia Beach, and we lived near the Edgar Cayce Foundation, where Edgar Cayce was this, this radical savant of the psychic intuitive, and documented cases of going into these self-induced trances to be able to heal people. And it was fascinating. I remember in the 10th grade doing my theme, my school term paper on clairvoyance and telepathy. Then where I went to the University of Virginia, many of you may know Dr. Ian Stevenson, who started the deep Center for Research on the Paranormal, and sent social scientists and psychiatrists and psychologists to various places around the world to study the phenomenology of the paranormal. And I remember even in Sri Lanka meeting a family whom a young child came to their home, and who was included in the research of Dr. Ian Stevenson, where he announces to these foreign people with his own mom and dad in tow that these are my real parents. And they brought him in, and he too could speak fluent Pali at the age of 3 and 4 and 5. These are very well documented cases. Where does this information come from in Ascension here on the holy day of Easter? And Mahasi Sayadaw and this Burmese devotee shared a dialogue that was recorded, and in essence I was told that the exchange was about how this woman was inhabited by a deity known in the Pali language as a deva, D-E-V-A, a being, a radiant being, not quite as physically composed as a human, but much more ephemeral, ambrosia-like, the radiance. Any of us have done the various degrees of the psychedelic molecule understand that, or anyone who's meditated, I might even add, understands that we're a multiplicity of frequencies, and it's just one particular frequency that identifies with the physicality of epidermis that wraps around organs and brains. But when we meditate, we begin to see a transcendent theology that's the simultaneity of dimensionality, and we begin to see, oh my God, I'm not that one form, I'm not that one idea, I am not the identity that I was trained to believe as the singular identity of Alan Clements. And that is so liberating to know that we are a multiplicity of frequencies, right? Those of you who meditate, this is not far-fetched, this is very basic meditative understanding. And this woman in Mahasi Sayadaw, in the company of all the other monks and nuns, talked about life as a deva, and she announced that she was a student of the Buddha, and she became a stream enterer, the first stage of enlightenment, at the time of the Buddha, when the Buddha ascended to a particular realm in this samsaric dimensionality. I think it's called Tusita. And the Buddha gave a discourse, and she, among many Deva friends and family, attained the Sotapanna stage, the stream entry, the first stage of awakening, or of Nibbana. That's to me, I am deeply touched by these Buddhistically biblical ascension stories of dimensionality. I don't know where it comes from, but I really treasure more and more, because I have to share with you, I have very little left in me. I don't know about you, very little left in me that wants to breathe. I was telling someone the other day that I'm already embodying that I'm dying. No, Alan, no. You're already dead. I've been trained to understand that death doesn't just come immediately. It's an ever-present phenomenology of every nanosecond of consciousness and physicality. There's the arising and the passing. Anicca vata sankhara, upadavaya damino. People know that from birth in Burma. All things are ephemeral, all things are transitory, all things are evanescent. They arise and pass away so fast like a lightning bolt in the dark sky of consciousness. Life and death is here and now, here and now. Hold on to nothing, O bhikkhu. Every breath, not just your first and last, every inhalation, every molecule, nanosecond of that in-breath, every nanosecond of the out-breath, alive with death and rebirth. That level of vitality and freshness, the radiance of Dhamma, the continuity of ascension here on this holy day of Easter, juxtaposed with the pornography, the density of violence, the pornography of predation, the pornography of privilege and power. Why and how, I don't know. But so that was the end of that story. And it always fascinated me. And I heard the tape, I heard the translation, but no one ever had verification that it actually happened. I don't know where it triggered in me something special. And I met Sayadaw U Pandita for a very special 9-day gathering prior to his passing away in 2016. If you want to hang with me in this story, again, coming back to the roots of my book, Extinction X-Rated, based upon the two Vitakka Sutta. And, you know, for those of you who know, Sayadaw U Pandita and myself, I mean, he was my teacher, my mentor, my father, my brother, my deepest soul ally, Dhamma ally in this existence. I'm bereft in a kind of existential loneliness without him, frankly. I feel the same thing with my mother and my father, with Mahasi Sayadaw, with several men friends, Bob, Tom, Trey, my aunts. We live in this, next thing you know, gone, 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 gone. Isn't that anicca? Isn't that an emptiness? Gone, gone, gone. The world's gone. Extinction, gone. And what a burden to have to face this. And so to find hope in there, this ascension story, this resurrection story. U Pandita talked to me about something I'd never heard him talk to me about. He talked to me about the power and the excellence of parami. These forces, these cognitive mosaics of consciousness, these individual energetic templates that each have characteristics, manifestations, functions, and purposes, like colors on a cognitive palette of Dhamma transformation. If we have the right chaitana, the right intention, the right mindfulness, the right concentration, and the right effort, we become the creative artist with these cognitive colors, which U Pandita shared with me and with two of my dear friends at the same time. The three of us were there. They have the special Dhamma power to create both radiance, freedom, and the immediacy of an ascended presence. They're the closest in English is heightened excellence. I would call it the parami as the kind of the psychedelic assisted states of consciousness. They're so potent. To learn how to paint with them, he was telling us, and how to know them and immerse oneself. They're so rare to find. To identify your life based upon the power of the parami. the power of Dhamma ascension, the process of vimutti, the process of becoming a deva as a human, a Brahma as a human, a Buddha as a human. Equal to that, which was a very fascinating sharing for me, he said, those rare individuals who understand the 10 paramis, truthfulness, generosity, loving kindness, patience, they have a deep, deep reverence for those paramis being the priority of presence. Regardless of the obstacle, they have trained their mind in the term sanvega, he said. You can take refuge in sanvega, the Pali Buddhist, which means that you have an urgency, as I understand, a political, spiritual, existential vitality that does everything possible to refuse participation in projection, blame, righteousness, ignorance, and pornography, the pornography of projection, the pornography of absconding from self-responsibility. And you'll feel it more and more and more as an aberration of being. And you train yourself in this quality of alignment and solidarity with the soldiers and the warrior states of parami. He said, there you become your own Sangha members. And when you are in situations where you go to sleep or relax, or you somehow forget, when you're in bliss, or you sometimes lose the fidelity of wanting to stay vigilant, he talked about the concept of existential euthanasia. He said the Bodhisattva, the Buddha to be, after making the declaration to the former Buddha, Sumedha, if he were born into circumstances where the circumstances were not as he wanted them, he had this sense about himself or herself. I don't know about you, this comes back to where you just don't feel you belong. You ever felt that? That deeper sense of, I don't want to be mindful of making it work. No, I don't want to think that I need to be better in order to accommodate something less than. I know it sounds arrogant and a diluted expression of compassion, but trusting an uncensored, unfiltered fidelity to motivation, determination, to mindful intelligence, to parami, to cetana, to aditant, and to this deeper thing called the raison d'etre. The existential raison d'etre of your own unique attributes configured through the uniqueness of your own namarupa in this great infinite tapestry of existence. Think of, just for a moment, the dimensions of possibility, the dimensions of novelty. Yes, you could probably reduce novelty to the primary colors on a palette, and then you begin to mix those colors, and then all of a sudden you have 10,000, 100,000, the radiance and the gradation of 1,000,000, 100 million different gradations of hue of consciousness. And the existential raison d'etre U Pandita was talking about, although there is anatta or emptiness of being, it doesn't mean that there isn't unthinkable uniqueness, novelty, creativity in not demonizing your atta. Your sense of self isn't congealed as a solid entity. It's more vibrant, it's more ecstatic, it's more loquacious, it's more ascended. It's got more diversity and uniqueness to that. And you go, once you deconsolidate anatta, into a more radiant sense of being multiplicities of color. Whew. Think of the creative possibilities when we release ourselves from the enslavement of centrality. We get to play on a palette of great diversity. And here, Sayadaw U Pandita introduced me specifically in this conversation to a facet of Samvega, as I understand it, an existential dislocation, a sense that this isn't where I need to be. This isn't what I need to be doing. This isn't a place I want to hang. This isn't a conversation that I'm feeling good with. And it's, yeah, you kind of spiritually rock the boat. They know not what they do. I place my spirit with you, Father. This whole analogy, this whole metaphor of betrayal. Who are the Judases in our lives? Who are our apostles? Who are the women? Who are the men? Who walks with us across the jagged land as we carry the burden of the cross of our own kilesa, our own delusion, our own accumulated ignorance? Who nails us to that cross? Who do we weep to? Who's selling our belongings? Who are the pornographers of our own being? We've got to radically play on the theater set of demonic energy. I am repulsed, and this is what he was getting at. Repulsion, disconnection, inappropriateness, wrongness of context, dislocation, conscious, mindful euthanasia. I don't want to be here. Navigating the terrain of samsara, dimensionality, ascension. A conscious, deliberate, metaphorical death to be more engaged in the holy spirit of a more radiant dimensionality where your instinct tells you it's a better place to be to refine your parami. That navigation, how few people I ever see in this life are willing to adventure along the terrain of the uncertain, to step beyond the pornography of comfort and familiarity, the prediction of how they're unaware sometimes, a lot of the times, all of us are, in the deep fetish for tying money, privilege, power, continuity of privilege, power to my presence. And in the name of, I speak in the tongues of the devil, unknowingly, unaware of my own perversity, pornography, my own delusion. That interior equation to me, and U Pandita really, trust deeply in your perception, in your discriminating mindful intelligence. When something's wrong, believe it. When it's no longer right and fertile, trust it. Learn, in my language, what I was hearing from him intuitively, learn to walk on. Learn to move away from. Learn to know how to take a stand. Learn to look into the eye of the devil and say, I see you. No chance will I participate in your evil. They know not what they do. Knowing how to be an artist, knowing the right colors, say to U Pandita and Mahasi would say, knowing how to take the mindful brush of consciousness and place it into the right hue, mix colors on the palette of shared presence, and know the difference between wise presence and pornographic presence. No, that's a diluted color. Bring in the radiance of love. No love from sadness. No compassion from fear. No determination from patience. No courage from comfort. Meditation, those of you who know, the Dhamma palette is to study states of mind, their interaction, the colors of consciousness. Okay. The Deva in Mahasi's room, Seda Upandita, discriminating existential euthanasia, the willingness to not participate where you are and know how to engage where you want to be, with whom you want to engage with. Tubhataka, I'll end here and carry on tomorrow. Decades went by from when I first heard the story of Mahasi Sayadaw in the Deva in the upstairs of his room in his building in Rangoon in the Mahasi Tatanayeka. One day I was in meditation a few years back, and I heard a knock on the door. I got up from meditation, and there was a man who I knew by name and face, and he said, I've found something I think you will really find interesting. And I said, please come in and sit down. And we talked, and he shared with me that as the late Mahasi Sayadaw's biographer, the man who had done the most thorough research on all of his talks and writings and letters and videos, who would compile them and put them all on a hard drive, which I was blessed to get, which I have. He said, after all these decades, remember the Deva story and the audio recording that I gave you way back of the woman disciple who embodied the Deva and spoke in this foreign Pali language and talked about becoming enlightened during the time of the Buddha as a Deva? Well, we found the first and only reference where Mahasi Sayadaw, in one of his Dhamma talks here in the front hall in the monastery, where he talked about the encounter with this Deva many years before. So it's the first validation of Mahasi Sayadaw not only remembering the event, validating the event, and telling an audience of nearly 10,000 people that has been recorded. Yes, I have the recording here for you, but I'll tell you its essence right now. He told the audience on his Sunday Dhamma talk, years before, I think it was in, I don't want to be on record for this, but approximately I think in the early 1950s, like in 1951, that a woman came to our meeting in my cottage here, announcing herself not as a yogi that I knew, but as a Deva, who became a Sotapanna, a stream enterer, the first stage of enlightenment in the 4 gradations of awakening according to the Theravada Buddhist tradition. And I would like to share with you our conversation, because she's referring to, in our dialogue, a very obscure sutta or discourse of the Buddha known as the Tuvātaka Sutta. I'd never heard the term before. Of course, I'm not a scholar of Buddhism. I have a cursory understanding of basic Pali and some of the texts. I love Mahasi Sayadaw's books. I read those. And I would like to share with you today, telling the Burmese audience, the essence of this very, very obscure but very important discourse of the Buddha called Tuvātaka. Okay, this is, and I'll come to the end here and carry on tomorrow, But this discourse became the operating psychology motivation for the book I just finished that's now available called Extinction, X-Rated. And what was fascinating about it was that he recalled the discourse of the Buddha, which is in the Pali Canon, where the Buddha as a human, this is really, really short to the point, saw that what he knew at this particular time could not be understood by humans. And so he went into his own abhinya, his own psychic capacity to interrelate beyond physical form, and began to arise in an ascended moment of transcendent consciousness and appeared in a heightened or higher realm in one of the 6 Deva lokas, 6 Deva realms, where he then talked to, they say, an unlimited amount of Devas. It's like Christ's Ascension here on Easter Sunday. And he surveyed all these Devas and realized that few of them had the capacity to hear the salient teachings of his own capacity to teach Dhamma and awakening, to overcome their own latent pornographic attachment to power and privilege, prestige and comfort, the denial of impermanence, the denial of anatta, the denial of dukkha. And so he duplicated his body, and there he psychically programmed the phenomenology of this phantasm to be in dialogue in such a way that the Devas would understand the question and the answers of this phenomenology, this rainbow effect of radiant cognitive intelligence programmed to help eliminate from the mind and body of other beings greed, anger, and delusion, their attachment to the pornography of power and privilege. We talk about psychedelic-assisted psychotherapy, we talk about DMT, we talk about meditation, we talk about psychic powers, we talk about dimensionality, we talk about quantum physics, we talk about the ability to read minds and telepathy and clairvoyance. We are in a radiant, right, universe of dimensions, over the top dimensions, if we only had the skills. And yet we have all these devilish satanic behaviors that want to kill and to annihilate and imprison and enslave. It's a kind of hell world on earth. And this part of me wants to go right to those Deva realms. And it said that that woman who came to Mahasi Sayadaw, who spoke in the Deva language, was in that community of the Buddha when the Buddha talked and duplicated his body in the Tuvataka Sutta. She became enlightened. And this man told me on my meditation bed in my room at the Mahasi Yekta just a few years ago. And they all became in different degrees of enlightenment. And what a beautiful gift to give me, after all these years, to have a man walk in, a samsaric Sangha brother, and share with me something so breathtaking here on Easter, in the biblical resurrection, in the redemption, in the ascension, in all of this darkness that we're embedded in, the light, the radiance of parami, and the conviction, the chaitana and determination to keep alive the radiance and have the discriminating wisdom to know where not to be, to know what they do not know, to make discriminating choices, to engage or to refrain. And I'll end here. I came to this house, it was gifted to me temporarily way back in August. I thought of Tuvataka. Both being a Deva, imagining the radiance of being in a field, a galactic transcendent luminosity of other brothers and sisters, making love with consciousness, the sapiosexual, existentialism, of shared space, and playing in the poetry of consciousness and mind and song and dance. And we all know what it means to do these things physically, but imagine where Christ is at this moment. Imagine where a Buddha is at this moment. Imagine the devas, the angels. Where are you singing in your holiness? I want to belong in those communities. I want to belong in those castles and those Notre Dames without walls. I want to know the more radiant secrets of the soul, right? That's today, the holy day of Easter, the Ascension, the Tuvataka. And I said, if I had one act left on earth, what would be my Tuvataka? What would I want to create if I had the capacity of consciousness to engage in the phenomenology of transcendent awakening and understand the mosaics of my own capacity to do a Rembrandt, to do a Michelangelo, to do an Aristotle, to do a Plato, to do whatever is needed to occupy the most liberated, ascending states of liberty and freedom. And if I could create consciousness in forms, what would I create? What would be the epic battle of my own war with the devil in Mara? The Buddha was said to have sat beneath that Bodhi tree in Bodh Gaya, India, 2,600 and 600 years or 60 years ago. And he called off the search and he sat down, right? It's so radically metaphorical for all of us. Okay, there's no other place to go except take it higher. And he put his hand down and touch the earth like this Buddha. Bear witness to my right, the dignity to proceed with this quest to liberate, to ascend. And the forces of the devil and Satan and Mara tried to seduce him all the time, trying to seduce us into the cult of the devil, into Satan, into prophet, the fetish of power, Davos, Washington, the swamp, the Har, the Masak in Burma, all those states of consciousness. He said, no, 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 no. Illusion, 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 delusion. I refuse to participate, like Seda U Pandita, refuse to participate, commit existential euthanasia, another radiant expression of warrior mindfulness. Refuse to live in any connection to it. Die is not to commit death. It's the refusal to participate. Taking it higher, leaving it behind. Next, 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 right? Tuvataka. What would you create? And that's what I want to leave with today. What would I create? I created it, Extinction X-rated. It's my act, the most personal expression of me being personal. I dared never even think these things, much less document them. It was never being meant to be written. It was a self-therapy, a psychedelic trip over many months, deeply embedded in the DMT molecule, deeply embedded in a Tuvataka. What would I create? If you have the courage to read it, you can bear witness to my process of confronting the devil, my crucifixion, my being nailed to my own cross of fear, and my desire to take it higher and to ascend, especially here on Easter. You know, I am proud, I am grateful. If I lose my breath, lose my consciousness, if I die today, I will have delivered the soul essence of my heart and being to the world. If you're offended, I can't apologize to you. Take it higher. Take it higher. What's your Tuvataka? What's your dream expression of intimacy? Where do you want to commune? It's not like Jesus going to some other heaven world. There is life. There is Mary. There is the lover. There is the beloved. What do you want to do to die to one dimension? No, die to 2 dimensions. No, die to 3 dimensions. No, U Pandita would say, die to every dimension of delusion. And that, to me, is where I end this book and I stand in the book. The word Nibbana, The Buddha was said in the Tuvataka Sutta according to Mahasi Sayadaw's interpretation. And listen up, my friends. Listen with every cell of your heart and mind and being. Freedom and Nibbana and heaven is not tomorrow. It is here in the oxygen of eternal space. Breathe it, think it, feel it. Be so mindfully sensitive. He's telling the audience, be awakened to the Nibbana experience as we share and commune in this shared related space. The Buddha with Tavatimsa and Tuvataka. He's talking and there's enlightenment. It's not the classic sitting down with my eyes closed, sitting, walking, eating mindfully, talking, and thinking that sometime down the road, lifetime after lifetime, we too can ascend, we too can become a Buddha, we too will overcome these kilesas. Play high, U Pandita would always tell me. Play so radically high, so radically committed to the edge right now of a radiant, breathtaking possibility. Ascend, right? The Tuvataka Sutta is a testament to the immediacy of Nibbana as the oxygen of being, if only we have the lungs and the courage to breathe that now, rather than the atmosphere of the devil, of the demonic, of the Mara. The dawn of the full moon in May, 2,600 years ago, the Buddha was said, okay, Tuvataka, I see you, I hear you, I am you, I am free. So despite the odds, and I'm right there with you, how easy it is for me to articulate the darkness, right? Hear me out with this rant and it's so easy to articulate what's wrong. I'm so good at wrong. What about Joseph Biden? Wrong. Donald Trump, wrong. Mossack, wrong. Pointing out wrong. They're not listening. Die to that. Commit mindful euthanasia. Make it right. Take it higher. Make it right in your own mind and body. Take it higher. Breathe the oxygen of liberty. And right there, create on the palette of your paramis your Rembrandt, your Michelangelo, your finger painting, your rad hip hop, your death metal, your activism, your civil disobedience, your existential disobedience, your radiant creation of art. Life is art, right? My book is my expression of radical, cinematic, literary art about what it means to be alive, embodied at this time with so much bullshit going down. But let us refuse to participate in the darkness, and let's just constantly take today, Easter Sunday, the Tuvataka, Extinction X-rated, and just take it higher. I lived in Paris, very close to Notre Dame. I would go there all the time to just cry and emote and feel and bathe in the holy woman of Paris, the divine feminine, those stained glasses, those chimes, just the sanctity, right? Do you feel it today? The resurrection here. Do you feel the sanctity? Breathe into your own innate DMT, your own psychedelic, your own MDMA, your own whatever it is that gives you that luminosity, the existential capacity to feel the nature of an awakened freedom in Nibbana right now. Non-postponement of Dhamma. The resurrection. So from my heart to yours, thank you for being in my life. I hope you will stay close, share this video if so moved. If you're interested in Extinction X-rated, it's on Amazon worldwide until it gets taken down. And it's uncensored, raw, and I call it my art, my heart, my transcendent wish for existence. So thank you for your time today, and I'll see you tomorrow.